now you guys know about the family and all of those shit that they did.
I'm going on a hot air balloon ride tomorrow with my partner, and you've ruined it.
Sorry. Just wash it from your mind.
Warning. This podcast contains discussions of a frank nature. No detail will be spared. Because of that, profane language, death, gore, sexuality, violence, assault, and other horrors of reality will be discussed in full. The hosts will also make jokes about sensitive topics, because they love dark humor, and because they are idiots. The hosts can and will be wrong, so please do your own research if you want to find out more about the subjects discussed. Please enjoy the show.
Now, are you sitting comfortably? Good. Then we'll begin.
Today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be.
The atoms in your left hand probably came from a different star than your right hand.
It is our basic human right to be forgotten.
A second plane now has crashed into the other tower of the World Trade Center.
Putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay.
The defendant shall be incarcerated for the rest of her natural life with no possibility of parole.
You are not machines. You are not cattle. You are men.
We were somewhere around Barstow, on the edge of the desert, when the drugs began to take hold.
So welcome to Occulte Veritatis. Once again, I am Ood Gallifrey.
I'm Sage Murray.
And I'm Leon Filker.
So, hello everyone, welcome back. When last we spoke, I had just finished part 1 of the Children of God series. So, if this is your first time tuning in, please go back and listen to that episode, or else you'll be super confused. So off you go.
Very super confused.
Super confused.
Super confused.
So when last we spoke, I was talking about flirty fishing, the method that David Burg encouraged the women in his cult to partake in to create converts. It was basically church-sanctioned prostitution. So now, continuing with my my cheery subjects,
yep.
I'm going to talk about another super controversial cloud that hangs over the children of God. Child sex, molestation, pedophilia, and murder.
In that order?
Pretty much.
Okay.
So in 1983, the group started calling themselves the Family International. I guess Children of God was just a little too hippy-dippy for them.
From what I gather about how they were trying to promote their religion and promote their group, they were trying all kinds of stuff. I actually found a little music video. I'll put it up for the listeners here. They can listen to it. But these are members from the 1980 Family International singing a song about their leader and about their religion.
That after all, we've strayed and yes, we've been bad. We're thankful for your love and for sending the searchers to give us a chance. We vow to do our best. After you're gone, oh Dad, it's gonna break my heart, the love you've shown to me. After reading your letters, the first thing I thought was, Dad, I don't want you to leave. And yes, we promise that we'll carry it on. At least we'll try with all of our heart. But before you go, we just want you to know, oh Dad, we're gonna carry it on.
Isn't that weird? It's almost like they're singing to David Burg himself and weeping for him when he's gone. Anyway, sorry, Sage, go ahead.
At the end of 1983, the family reported 10,000 full-time members living in 1,642 Family International homes. By this time, the family's Music with Meaning radio club had grown to almost 20,000 members. Holy shit.
Jesus.
Yeah. So, according to statistics published by TFI, I don't know what that stands for, because I did this a long time ago.
Titfuckery International.
Sure.
Accurate.
Evangelic efforts were resulting in an average of 200,000 conversions to Christ and distributions of nearly 30 million pages of literature per month.
Christ. Is that original pieces of literature or like individual pieces of paper?
I think pieces of literature, like Mo letters and their tracts and whatever.
Jesus.
All the stuff that they put out. In March of 1989, the family issued a statement that in early 1985, an urgent memorandum had been sent to all members reminding them that any such activities, adult-child sexual contact, was strictly forbidden within our group. The emphasis was original.
And at this time, David Burg was no more, right?
No, he was still around. And such activities were ground for immediate excommunication from the group. In January 2005, Claire Borowick, a spokesperson for TFL, stated that due to the fact that their current zero-tolerance policy regarding sexual interaction between adults and underage minors was not in our literature published before 1986, we came to the realization that during the transitional stage of our movement from 1978 until 1986, there were cases when some minors were subject to sexually inappropriate advances. This was corrected in 1986 when any contact between an adult and a minor, any person under 21 years of age, was declared an excommunicable offense. So during the 1990s, allegations of child abuse were brought against the family from members all around the world, and this was super common.
And I suppose that's as the kids started to grow up and learn what had been done to them.
Yeah, totally. So we've already established that David Burg was a gross pedo who masturbated his young daughters, probably had sex with his own mother. He definitely had some really inappropriate and highly illegal sexual proclivities. It makes sense now that he was a powerful cult leader, that Berg would allow certain lines to kind of blur within his cult. So remember way back in part 1 when I told you about Karen Zerby? Well, she was doing the whole flirty fishing thing too. She ended up getting pregnant by a hotel employee in the Canary Islands and giving birth to a baby boy on January 25th, 1975. This boy was named Ricky Rodriguez, a.k.a. Davidito.
I heard about him.
Yeah. So he was adopted, not legally, just symbolically, by David Burg and declared to be the next spiritual leader of the cult. So David Burg really liked this dude, decided that he was going to take over from him. He also had a very sad and unusual, to say the least, upbringing, which is documented in the book The Story of Davidito. So the Story of Davidito, commonly referred to as the Davidito book, was a 762-page book published by the Family International in Spain in 1982. It consisted of a compilation of a publication series known as the Davidito Letters, which were circulated from about 1975 until 1981. According to the PubDex, 2,700 copies were printed and distributed to family homes all around the world. It was intended to be an example of good child rearing. The early years of the second generation were influenced by the style of childcare in the book, and sexual liberties were a part of the second generation's childhood to varying degrees depending on the commune. So while the stated intent was to not harm the children, the support for and advocacy of pedophilia ultimately wrought harm to many children. The family later ordered this book to be heavily sanitized and eventually destroyed completely.
Sanitize? Like, from what I heard about it, it's basically a collection of the abuses they sought on that kid. And it's surprising they would ever try to go to sanitize before destroying it. Like, they're trying to polish shit.
In 1997, the family published a revised version called Dito, His Early Years. I went and looked at scans of the original book, which I found at a website called xfamily.org, a website to help provide support for people who have escaped the cult. And I need to bleach my brain. This stuff was super fucked up. It was just disgusting. Lots of pictures of naked adult women embracing Ricky as a young child, highly sexualized pictures of a 2-year-old Ricky with no diaper on, captioned, "My come hither look." Sexualizing a 2-year-old? How fucked up do you have to be?
Christ. Well, right now I'm trying to work through the newer season of Stranger Things, and I find it shocking and disgusting when people are trying to sexualize 13, 14, 15-year-olds, but a 2-year-old? How can you ever go that far?
Passages that David Burg wrote, such as, "God made children able to enjoy sex, so he must have expected them to." Ricky had a nanny named Sarah, who was an adult woman, who was responsible for much of the book and the sexual abuse. And I'll read some passages that she wrote in the book. This one's about 10-month-old Ricky. This is a 10-month-old baby. While crawling around nude in the yard after his swim, he began to play with his little peenie right in front of the guests. Nobody said anything, but I can imagine what they were thinking. Of course, we had to comment to Davidito, that he should not play with his peenie in public, but inside the house is a better place. Even at a year old, I think that was one of his favorite reasons for going naked. This is another one. Davidito is also jealous when Alfred, who was her partner, and I began loving up and tries to pull us apart. So the best thing for now is that we just not make love in front of him. Like, oh darn, adults can't make love in front of a fucking baby.
Like they lost an opportunity.
Yeah. Davidito loves to watch Dave and Sally go at it, though. That's another couple. He begins to pant and bounce along with them, then sits down in exhaustion with a big sigh when it's all over, just like he's been through it too.
I mean, that's just basic monkey see, monkey do.
Yeah.
But they're attributing such twisted motivations to it.
Sex. Little David stood watching through the pool fence as a couple made love in the water. He imitated every motion by wiggling his bottom and his right hand up and down. Then he went to the house to show Mommy the story of how to goose a girl. And this is how Sarah described I say this in super big air quotes, the relationship between her 3-month-old daughter, Davida, and 17-month-old Ricky. He finally found something he thinks the baby is good for. He climbs up on the bed when she's propped there on a pillow and crawls right on top of her and begins hunching away. They both love it, really. Even when he sees a picture of her in his photo book, he'll begin hunching on the other side of the couch, and he'll keep his fingers stuck in the place where her photos are in the book, so he can keep turning to it and smile and pump away. Like, this is all learned behavior. Kids don't do this naturally.
All right, if you're drinking something, just finish that drink, and hopefully you'll drown your brain to the point where it just
you're gonna need to bleach it after this.
Where it forgets what it just heard.
I'm just like sitting in disgust silence.
I know.
I don't know what to say.
This is really disturbing stuff. Mommy and Daddy just didn't believe us until they watched for themselves one time. He climbed on top of Davida, lying on the couch, and began banging away with a big smile. Daddy stood there. Daddy is David Burg. At first a bit odd, then felt Dito's little penis and said, I would never have believed it if I didn't feel how hard he really is. Alright, so this one is when he isn't even 2 years old. He gets quite excited when I watch his bottom and his peenie gets real big and hard. I kiss it all over till he gets so excited he bursts into laughter and spreads his legs open for more. I wonder what it's going to be like when he begins to talk and asks me for more. This is before the kid can even verbally communicate.
And when I signed onto this podcast, I knew we were doing some sick shit, but this is fucked.
I know, this stuff is fucked. It's awful. Like, I did it so you don't have to. I wouldn't
have thought to do this.
I gross.
Prefer my historical conspiracies.
Ugh. When playing on the floor, he'll oftentimes spread his legs open for me to kiss his penis, what we call his peenie, because they like infantilizing language. He got to where he liked it so much, he'd pull people by the hand down to the floor and would spread his legs apart for the treatment.
Well, like any kid, like if he sees a way he can get attention, he's going to go for it. And
yeah, well, it's like he doesn't think that it's sexual, but it clearly is the adults sexualizing the children. Like, it's completely disgusting and immoral.
I mean, as a parent, you're supposed to discourage like negative ways of asking for attention, but they just bore out and just let anything go.
They just think it's funny.
They just encourage dark stuff.
So here are the grossest ones.
Gets worse?
Yeah, where they're just really straight up advocating for sex with children. Now, again, this is his caregiver's words. Now, if I share with you some of Davidito's sexy experiences, will you try prayerfully and cautiously to benefit from the lessons learned and follow the Lord's leadings in possibly sharing the same gentle love and fun?
I think pedophiles are probably jerking off while reading this.
I know, it's gross.
Yeah, if you're a pedophile listener,
stop listening.
Yeah, just take that, find the sharpest object near you, and just keep on pushing it into your ear. You're gonna feel some resistance at first, but just keep on going until blackness takes over.
Right. All right. And she said, "Sex is a beautiful, God-given, wonderful part of the life we enjoy together, and we'd love to share it with you. as long as you don't use it as an occasion to the flesh and in some way actually harm or confuse the children. It's oftentimes the little ones who suffer through our big people's mistakes. Like, I think that's what they're fucking doing.
Yeah. They're making big people's mistakes. Their whole life is a big people mistake.
Yeah. So we'll attempt to share a few of our experiences with you. Not so that you will try to do exactly what we do, but because it's part of little David's life story. Praise the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Ugh.
Sorry, it's a kicked-in impulse from my Christian childhood.
Ugh. So on the 20th of April after nap time, Alfred, Davidito, and I were all three loving up. So we have 2 adults and a child. When Dito looked at me with those big, dreamy Canarian eyes and said, "Sarah, I yub you," and pulled me down to kiss him, then pushed my head down to kiss him some more. That is not natural childhood behavior. It all developed... Yeah, I know your brain is fucked. It all developed so gently and lovingly that he was really affectionate, eyes closed. So guess what happened? For a bouncing climax, he spoke in excited foreign tongues. He sounded very gypsy, similar to Abraham. Afterward, he lay still in my arms to rest, and even reached out to love Alfred across the neck, thanking him for sharing. Now when we lie in the bed together to read a book, sometimes just at the point where I think he's really listening and interested, he'll look at me with those beautiful flirty eyes again, so that I know what he wants. Or he will put his arm around me and say, "Sarah, come love me up big." So this was when Sarah walked in on other family children in the bath. This lady was fucking sick. The 2, 5, and 6-year-old little boys were acting foolish and embarrassed about their penises during their bath. One said, "I don't want her in here because she might see my penis." I laughed and joked with them, telling them I liked sexy boys. But they were all giggling and laughing, acting embarrassed about being naked in public, and so conscious of their tiny little penises. I thought to myself, isn't that funny? Just yesterday, Dito and I loved up together after our bath. Ha! What a revolutionary life we do lead.
Gross.
And underneath this text was a picture of Sarah and David naked in bed together, with her hand on his sexual organs. The photograph was entitled Cuddlin' Capers.
Are these photos or drawings?
They were like straight up black and white photos.
I think you might be on a list now.
I know, I think I'm on a list because I saw these. They were gross.
How did they not go to jail for this?
I don't know. I have no idea.
And does this book still exist?
Online it does.
That's gross.
Oh, the legal system is full of holes.
So I'm pretty sure you guys get the idea. From his birth, David Burg and Karen Zerby determined to make Ricky a poster boy for their followers. He was, according to them, a divine prince, destined to lead the children of God through the biblical end time. As such, they felt that Ricky must be molded into an ideal follower, an incarnation of their belief and practices. His upbringing was exhaustively documented and highly publicized as a model for all parents in the family to follow. As a result, obviously from that gross shit I've read, Ricky's childhood and youth was spent in a highly controlled environment characterized by intense indoctrination, stringent discipline, and sexual initiation by adults.
You know, I'm super glad we chose a hard alcohol for this, because, this is helping build the fog in front of what I'm hearing.
Yeah, it's gross. It's awful. This is, imagine me researching it. I read through this whole freaking manual. I looked through it.
I wish I could unhear a lot of what I just heard.
No, I'm sorry. Sorry, listeners. I love you. So as Ricky developed, he developed a deep-seated resentment.
This is astonishingly fucked.
I know.
didn't know this kind of thing went on.
It is astonishingly fucked. That's the only way to describe it. This poor kid, as he grew up, he developed a deep-seated resentment toward Berg and Zerby because of the sexual abuse he had suffered as a child due to their policies and because of the unnatural way in which he was raised. He would later state that he had a sister. They were never allowed to be just children and always had to perform and demonstrate their supposed natural superiority to other children in the group. David Burg finally died in 1994, and Karen Zerby then took over the cult.
Good riddance.
Yeah, no shit, hey? In his late teens, Ricky began rebelling against his mother's beliefs and practices. In early 2001, he and his fiancée, who was another cult kid, Alicia Garcia made a final break with his mother, who, as I mentioned, had become the leader after Berg's death, and the family, declaring to her that we cannot continue to condone or be party to what we feel is abusive, manipulative organization that teaches false doctrine. You have devoured God's sheep, ruining people's lives by propagating false doctrines and advocating harmful practices in the name of God. As far as I can see, show no regret or remorse. So Rick and Alicia, now married, settled in Washington state, hoping to put the past behind them. However, Ricky became increasingly consumed by rage over the abuse that he and many hundreds of other children raised in the family had suffered. Deeply depressed, he felt that his mission was to find his mother and bring her to justice. In October of 2004, he moved to Tucson, Arizona, and he worked as an electrician. According to accounts by his friends and relatives, he moved there because he heard his mother had visited, and he wanted to find her. In January 2005, he arranged a meeting with a longtime family member and close associate of his mother, who was named Angela Smith, formerly known as Susan Joy Cotton, and stabbed her to death in his apartment. He then drove to Blythe, California, where he shot himself in the head. He released a videotape to be distributed to friends, family, and former members explaining his actions. In his video, Ricky saw himself as a vigilante avenging children like him and his sisters who had been subject to rapes and beatings. So I watched this video. It was on YouTube. We can link it in the show notes, and it's absolutely gut-wrenching.
Well, I'll probably pick a clip of it and play a little bit of it.
He's so absolutely full of anger and grief. You can feel it coming out of the screen.
Know that, okay, maybe I didn't technically do the right thing, but I tried to do something to help. I didn't just fade away. I didn't just turn tail and run and let those fuckers win. That I did what I could to make a difference. And I don't really know how far I'm going to get. I'm starting to think now that it's not going to be that far. And that's going to suck ass. I'll get one person, that's for sure. The goal is to bring down those sick fuckers, Mama and Peter. My own mother. What an evil little cunt. God damn. How can you do that to kids? How can you do that to kids and sleep at night? I don't fucking know. Anyway, that's my goal. But get the information that I need out of this person. I'm not trained in torture methods, which is what I'm going to have to make do. I got my drill here. The reason why it's got this fucking padding on it is just to try to silence it a bit because I'm in an apartment. I got gags, fucking socks. I got lots of fucking duct tape. I got a soldering iron. Heat. It's rather crude implements. I think can work wonders, especially if it's used in the right way. But I'm not trained. I don't know how to fucking do this. I don't even want to fucking do this. God damn it.
This is a tragic story of the irreparable harm that the Children of God inflicted on many of its members. And the sick thing is, the cult is still around today. They refuse to talk about all the childhood sexual abuse that occurred, but the proof exists on the internet and in the minds of the people affected by it. Like I mentioned before, xfamily.org was a wonderful resource for this podcast.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to condone murder and all that, but this is how to break a child. This is how to destroy a soul.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, Ricky, you get a pass on this one.
Yeah, poor Ricky.
I mean, he was nothing but a victim his whole life, and who can blame him for being full of murderous rage?
Well, he was sexually initiated by 10 months of age.
I mean, how can you just throw away a childhood and just replace it with scars?
Mm-hmm. It's tragic, and it's definitely not something that anyone here can joke about. It was horrendous, the abuse that was placed upon these innocent children.
Mm.
So that's all I have.
Yeah.
Sorry for the downer. Hopefully the palate cleanser will be super awesome, because this was a really somber podcast.
Yeah, what's our next one?
The next episode will be the happy tale of the disappearance of Lisa Ann Froon and Chris Kremers in the Panama jungle. If you consider 2 Dutch women going missing in a jungle to be an upswing, that should just give you a sign of how dour this episode was. You know, we all have a need to stare into the abyss, and we're all tempted by, you know, the extremes of this world, and we desperately look for explanations and things like that. Mm-hmm. And some episodes are going to be like this, because, you know, sometimes staring at reality isn't pretty.
Yeah. Sometimes reality is gross.
If you made it through this podcast, you get an Occulte Veritatis Gold Star. I hope it was worth it.
Yeah.
Watch a Disney movie. Like, if you have pets, like, cuddle them. Cuddle
your pet. Now you guys know about the family and all of those shit that they did.
I'm going on a hot air balloon ride tomorrow with my partner, and you've ruined it.
Sorry. Just wash it from your mind.
Floating over the hills, child rape floating in my head.
Yeah.
I'm going to watch Lilo and Stitch, like at triple speed, so I can watch it as many times as I can before bedtime.
Yeah, I'm going to go home and watch Moana.
Yeah.
No, Daniel!
Daniel! You need to heal my soul that's been broken! Yeah. Okay.
Thank you so much for listening. For Occulte Veritatis, I'm Sage Murray.
I'm Leon Figueroa. Cheers.
I'm Ood Gallifrey. Stay safe, hug something cuddly.
And don't do anything we wouldn't do.
Yep, love you.
I'm gonna find something real nice to play for you guys to hopefully help the wounds close that we've created for this episode. So, how about you enjoy Let the Sun Shine In by the artist The Mind Orchestra. Remember to stay tuned afterwards for the after show, where I'm gonna read a few things that listeners have sent in and read a few reviews. See you guys next time.
Sneaking above the canyon, filling my heart with happiness. Though my horse is not lonely, that's the start of life's journey. Even when things are looking down, I can see the sun. You make me feel alright. You make me feel alright. You make me feel so nice. Yes, you do.
Welcome to the after show. Today I'm going to focus on some iTunes reviews. I didn't think we'd be getting iTunes reviews so early, but hey, thank you to those who have submitted. If you want to help the podcast become more discovered, you too can submit an iTunes review. Just find our podcast on iTunes and give us 5 stars. You can say whatever you want. You can even ask a question. Hell, you can give us the recipe for your favorite kind of chocolate chip cookies. Replace half the chocolate chips with walnuts, by the way. The texture is just fantastic. Anyways, let's get to reading some. From Michael No. He gives us 5 stars. He says, creepy and mysterious but fun. His review reads, creepy and mysterious but fun podcast about all kinds of weird things. Very entertaining and very cool. Well, thank you, Michael, for your review. I think you're very cool. Going up next is Tahoe Girl. And I say girl because it has 2 R's in girl. Her 5-star review reads, so good just before Halloween. Love it. And just before Halloween as well, drink one and enjoy this twisted dive into all things crazy. Just like Leon said in the first episode, the way to enjoy this content best is to really pour a drink, pack a bowl, and relax while you're listening to us. We'll get more entertaining, the podcast will be better, and by the end of it, you'll be drunk, high, and relaxed, and a little bit creeped out. But in this world, you need to get a little bit paranoid to make sure to stay safe and all that good stuff. Tahoe Girl, thank you for your review. Next up is Alia Janjua. I hope I didn't butcher your name, but I'm very culturally ignorant, so there's a giant chance that I just ruined your name. Which is very uncool since you left us such an awesome 5-star review on iTunes. It says, cool podcast, very entertaining. She gives us 5 stars. She says, really entertaining podcast and cutting edge. Great listen. Thank you for calling us cutting edge. It took me far too long to figure out the basic mechanics of all the behind-the-scenes computing and equipment and all that. So I'm glad that we sound cutting edge. I'm glad that we give off that impression because it seems like a total mess from my end, but apparently it's coming out okay. That's nice. We did get one email from Tanya. She said that on our first episode with serial killers and their taxonomy and classifications and all that we were maybe relying a bit too much on criminal profiling. And the thing is, I totally agree with her. According to what I've read, criminal profiling is a very crude rule of thumb. The problem is, we really don't have enough serial killers to have a big enough sample size to create a fully reliable taxonomical system. We don't have enough samples to create a good structure to classify them more rigorously. Which is a good thing and a bad thing. Bad thing because we don't have the correct numbers to do a complete job. A good thing, having less serial killers is always a good thing, so yeah. The second reason it's unreliable is a lot of these are based on the interviews you do with the serial killer. And I don't know about you, but trusting a serial killer to represent themselves honestly and accurately, maybe not the best idea. They may be trying to play a role or something like that, so it's very hard to put total stock in their interviews. But with the taxonomical system we went over in episode 1, it is not bad. It's a good rule of thumb, and it's a good general way to classify serial killers and other types of killers. It can be useful in certain circumstances, and it can be totally useful in others. Either way, it is interesting to talk about, and that's all we're here for. Well, thank you again for tuning in to the after show. Hope you enjoy it. Hope you enjoy the little behind the scenes and more relaxed ways to do things. We have 7 patrons, $48 a month, and we are moving up. this podcast is planning to take over, and all the other podcasts are on watch, so maybe go out there and warn them